Hi, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to Impossible Live. I am delighted that the amazing Exquisite Eve is returning today. I need to remember today as part of our interactive discussion to tell you why I call her Exquisite Eve. One of the interesting things, and I love it because Eve has started an amazing series of tips under personal branding. And I love that she's got these amazing tips. Actually, I am so hooked, so Eve will laugh. I can tell you that I am on tip number 4, and I can't wait for her next tip. But one of the reasons why I call Eve Exquisite Eve is beyond her attention to detail, beyond the fact that we both absolutely love Star Wars, and she's using it in her imaging. Yes, and you can see that smile. We meet people and we're not really sure, but Eve from the very beginning, to me, has had intuitive and radiant energy on the screen. This is interesting. We've never met in person. And I was just talking with her before. I can't wait until we finally do have a chance to meet. But you want to meet people that light you up, and you want to meet people that give you goosebumps. And as well as that, you want to meet people who really help you think and function on your higher level. And one of the things I'm loving, and even I have had the pleasure now of knowing each other, and it's interesting, it'll be going on 6 years soon, is in the I know, in and we met in an amazing group. But I'm loving her tips, and I've had the chance to see Eve in many different settings, in her classes, in her visibility gym, in her tips as she's teaching us different things. She's a very, very patient teacher. But the reason why I call her exquisite is she covers every angle. It's difficult in life. It's difficult to please every single type of learner there is. And I am a solitary learner. So I was able to start in the beginning by watching Eve's amazing videos, kind of by myself. So I'm delighted to share Eve with you today and to welcome you and to invite you to let us know where you're tuning in from, whether you're tuning in live or for a replay. I love all of the people who've been joining us for replays and reaching out to me privately. Let us know that you're here so Eve has a chance to meet you. And if you haven't had a chance yet, also feel free to pop in and check out Eve's amazing LinkedIn profile, as well as her amazing content on YouTube, on Pinterest, on Facebook, and her exquisite website. So without further ado, Eve, where will we start today? And really, Eve, what is tip number 5? I am waiting with bated breath. What is the next tip in the series? You have me captivated by the first 4. And your third tip today will be our question today of what do you want to be known for? But let us know, Eve, where would you like to start today as we dive into strategies?
So, first
And
of all,
yep,
thank you for the amazing introduction. I mean, you always give me so many compliments. I mean, I'm like, I don't know, I'm so grateful. I mean, I'm speechless. So, thank you. And we can wrap up because it was good introduction. you know. Good. So, where we need to start, let's go on a serious note. To be honest, I'm so grateful that you read my content, probably one of few people who actually read it, because many people just scrolling, you know. So I admire you for being in my courses, for being with me on this journey, because you are my inspiration and you are my, I don't know, fun guide, teacher, everything. So, and the best friend, I think. So it's really, really important, I think, to find people like you online with who we can communicate, support each other, connect on a very deep level, and also recommend to other people, because this is how businesses thrive. And here we are with one of the tips is actually word of the mouth. So when we talk about personal brand, this is exactly the story. Melanie talks about me, introducing me on her channel, and this is how my personal brand grows. I am talking about Melanie, introducing her on my channel. She was interviewed by on my show twice, so and probably it was absolutely not the last one. And my people know Melanie. This is one of the biggest tips for building your brand strategy, I would say, and you just saw it in action. So if you will just take this one tip, and by the way, majority of the most known YouTube channels growing by the recommendation. So they're creating videos together, they're recommending YouTube channels to each other to subscribe. And this is how people grow successful YouTube channels without extra advertising. So this is the big tip, I would say. But this is not the next one. This is not the fifth tip in the series. And I'll post
See,
it.
I can't even persuade you to give me the next tip. That's
I'll
amazing.
post it right after, so don't worry. So in the first part, we were talking about how to build your brand, and I'm still talking about this in the series. And we were talking about more wide ideas about how to find your why, how to talk about your mission, vision, and understand what is there in that perfect wrapping, because many people mistaken the idea of the business brand and personal brand. And for business brand, logo is important, colors are important, a lot of brand standards are important. Because when we were defining the brand is an image in customers' mind, which customers build based on the idea of who you are, how you communicate, the experience with you, testimonials from other customers. But branding is setting up the standards for your company. So it's a company culture, it's colors, it's logos, it's how you present yourself, it's a tone of the voice, it's a brand personality, so many things. So for your personal brand, luckily or not, you don't really need all of that, because you already have your own personality, and this personality is flexible, it will change, your story will change, you will grow as a person. And that's a difficulty which we also discussed in the last video. If you didn't watch it, absolutely watch all Melanie's videos, and specifically that one to which I refer, because there is a lot of connection which we started then and we're going to continue today. So the connection is the first one. When we were talking about how to build the brand, it was a lot about similarity, because business brands and personal brands all need to build that why and vision and mission and all this kind of things. But when we talk about the brand strategy, how we actually do branding, those are completely different. Questions, Melanie?
So you're reading my mind. So one of the things I think is interesting is you're saying personal, business, and we spoke about professional and the differences between the three brands, and each part may have a different story. One of the things I loved was during your Star Wars tip, which was your tip number 4, you were reminding us about 3 rules of a good story. And I think one of the challenges or the blocks that I've heard others express, and I've had it myself at different times, is you mentioned 3 rules of a good story. And sometimes the rules that we're thinking of aren't the rules that our viewers thinking of, or that our ideal client isn't is thinking of. And that part I think sometimes is kind of where we get stuck. And I'm delighted that Cheryl's tuning in and others, but Cheryl and I had a really deep conversation kind of about this on Friday. I really appreciate her. And Corrine posted something on LinkedIn yesterday that really hit me personally, professionally, and really reminded me as a business brand. And I had to take a pause both times. And I really appreciate it, because you're reminding us too sometimes in the part of it that as we're building brands, we need to hire coaches or be surrounded by amazing coaches who share our values, because otherwise that story doesn't necessarily come out. You're
Mhm.
not sure that anyone's listening or that anyone cares to that story. But I love your three rules of a good story because the two of them reminded me this weekend how critical that is. The thing that you mentioned that I thought was really interesting was about speaking from our scars. Sometimes speaking from our scars personally doesn't align with the professional brand or the business brand. And how would you suggest meshing that?
Well, the idea of the speaking from the scars, not from the open wounds, is not mine, honestly, but it's a idea which I absolutely share. So it actually has a very questionable authorship. Many people say it's Brené Brown, many people say others. So let's not talk about who's this quote exactly. But the thing is that majority of coaches teaching us to share a very dramatic story so that people actually hook to it. So pretty much, TV soap, somebody dying, somebody crying, it's dramatic and stuff like that. And they make us feel that this is the right type of the story. And that's a huge mistake because, truly speaking, when we start speaking from our open wounds, we are still offended. We are still not happy. We still didn't find the solution. So our story doesn't really have the outcome. So we're taking people on a journey with us, and let's say there are many tactics. And again, I'm going to give you tips in the process, many tactics to start involving people into your brand. For example, vlogging, blogging, series of content. When you take people on the journey with you, when they don't know when it will end. So if you are right now struggling, and you know how many people responded for my evacuation post, how I was sitting in bomb shelters and stuff like this, my clients start messaging me like, you are influencer or what? You have so many comments, you have so many reactions. How are you doing it? I'm like, people are people, they just care about me. That's it. That's it's
The one
it's
thing I want to
important.
say about that is in the process of you posting and sharing that content from a personal branding, you also were sharing a story that was ongoing. So I think
But that was personal
sometimes,
story. That was
yes,
not a brand story.
okay.
That's why I say the brand story and your personal story are not necessarily same. When we talk about the personal brand, obviously the personal will be a big part of that. So we share a lot of things which happen with us because they change us. And I knew that this situation will change me. And I probably was very careful with that what I was sharing. I didn't share many things which probably I would share if I would do it emotionally because I have experience in it. That's why I was careful with many things because the things which I gone through, and for now, 6 people literally told me, "You have a book in you." And I'm like, totally. So once I will get the level when I will be able to speak from the perspective of the scars, I can write the book, I can talk about it post factum because I will have the outcome. I will know where I started. At the moment, I know where I started. I know where I am at the moment, but I don't know what is the outcome, what is that wisdom which I learned, what is that transformational experience. It's not there yet, and I'm already making notes. So I absolutely recommend you always journal, always make diaries, always think about these pieces of wisdom which you get from your life experience, because after few months, few years, these ideas which you write in the moment of the deepest desperation, crying, thinking about this journal, I don't know what. In 2 years, you can reread it and write something about it because you will be in a very different stage. Therefore, when we create stories from the scars, they actually have more wisdom and transformational clarity and power for our readers. That's why such stories are way more valuable. And these stories have all the needed components. Because when we talk about Joseph Campbell circle of the hero journey storytelling, we talk about the pain initially. So the call for adventure, refusal of adventure, then we go on a journey with all the ordeals and troubles and we facing our biggest fear, we learn how to go away from that facing biggest fear, and then we come to the gain. So we get that gold kind of prize, golden prize in the end of the circle. Now, when we speak from our wounds, we didn't reach yet the state where we have that prize. So we are still in the process. It's valuable, it's important, but for your brand, if you want to sell something, convert people, make a job, because personal brand is a business term. It's a very important part. It helps us to get some sort of business and things like that. In this case, when the story is over, it will have more value for our readers. So there is nothing wrong to share it in a form of vlog or something like this, but it will not convert people into your buyers, but it may create many friends for you. So it's really different goals. For personality will be a big win. For brand, not really. For brand, you need to be specific. This is a complete story. This is what I learned. This is what I want to offer to you.
From the perspective of Clarine's comment that's up there about, really popping up as your authentic self, and to kind of combine that voice, that vibe, as she's presenting her personal or business brand, and about it changing mindset. Like, I find it helpful, and Clarino laughed because we had this discussion a couple of months ago. I've been following her brand for years, and we finally had our first conversation this spring. And I said to her, without intending to be, I was one of her lurkers. So I didn't appear to be engaging with her content. I had been watching her lives. I had been popping in, and we had a chance finally to have a conversation, because I finally said, hey, really need to reach out to this amazing woman. But I think one of the things that I loved is when she's posting something that appears to be personal, there's a call to action in there. And I think that call to action, whether it's a call to connect, a call to respond, a question that asks us what our opinion is, in a way that's there. I laughed last week. I popped into one of Clarine's comments and made a new amazing internet connection, somebody I can follow and refer, and possibly it'll be a great strategic alliance. We have overlapping industries. This is about me making a comment about meditating and
Mhm.
waking up to the sound of the birds in the morning, grateful that I was home after 5 days on the road. I think the hard part is the difference when we say about personal brand and personal. It's hard to come up with a hard line, which is why I love Clarine's comment. And I really appreciated it, because in my conversation with Cheryl last week, we were talking about what happens, as you're saying, with the transformations, with the breakthroughs. So as a person, as a client, I'm not necessarily sharing my breakthroughs every day. And I know this is something I'll continue to change as we explore the LinkedIn lives. And maybe that's why we're here in this format, to remind me to share it in really safe spaces. How do you separate? And even your case, I know it's not the easiest question, because you're in the midst of some major personal and business transitions, changing countries where you conduct business, changing how you conduct business, changing when you conduct business. So
And I think I have an answer for you, which is
fabulous.
interesting. I first of all, I absolutely agree with Clarine comment, because I've been in this situation, and this is exactly when you shared her post. I'll tell you what, when we are in the middle of something, we are not giving call to actions. I'll be honest. We are not in that mindset. So in the moment we start giving call to action, process something, and when we start saying like, oh, would you like to talk about this or something like this, that already a sign that we processing the information. So we might process it in the middle. It doesn't mean that we're already out of the situation. But when we are in the situation, in the emotional rush, something happened and we emotions, we are not in logic. In this situation, writing something can be very, very harmful. Because, for example, if somebody offended you or something like this, and you decided to write about this on Facebook, and you have many people in common, and after 24 hours, you won't be in that emotional state. You'll be like, yeah, maybe I was a little bit harsh. I don't know. Maybe not.
I think
Thank you. No,
I think
thank
with
you.
the
This
but
stuff.
I think with the emotions, it depends on the topic.
Right. I mean, we
I
all
think
been
it
in this
depends
situation.
on the topic, on how close we are to a situation. I,
Many people act, see, it's proactive and reactive. So our story not supposed to be reactive, basically. So speaking from the wounds means that we are proactive. We already have something to share, and we can process, and we can involve other individuals into the conversation because we are emotionally already processed it. Now, depending on the level of the story, if the story is like mine, and which I don't know myself, I'm going through it. It's like, yeah, war, pandemic, Chernobyl, some crisis, some whatever. I mean, okay, one planet or another, I don't care. I mean, but that's a different story. I can speak about this, but you know that it will be more or less a mask because I didn't process all of my emotions. And in fact, I spent almost 1.5 months in the hermit mode because I literally don't talk to anybody and I'm processing my emotions. I can't sit with people to talk to them because, yes, they are very helpful. They want to protect me. They want to, all of them actually want to ask, how can I help you? And like when you have thousands of people who ask you how they can help you, you're like, just don't touch me. Let me sit here and process my story. It's important to process for all of us and to not write from this reactive mode because first of all it can be harmful for our brand many times, and we have to be very protective about our brands because it's our reputation. Another thing that we need to understand that we are in that stage where we can build up on it. So our stories is such a valuable and powerful thing that people will associate us with these stories a lot. And for example, I gave a lot of interviews about war, and now on Google, there is a little kind of what is it panel when you go in images, and there is a little panel with what your name is associated. You can Google your name and see that. That's a very important instrument for your brand. You will know
I
which
have to thank you for
keywords.
that. There are so many Melanie Richards that are famous
In
artists,
my case, it's easy.
legendary founders. I mean, I'm going to start using my L,
But you need
and
to see that thing. So in my case, I have personal branding, I have coaching, and unfortunately now I have war. The word war is associated with my name. Why? Because I was interviewed on this subject. Now I can say it's not careful. It's okay in this situation. I've been in this situation. I am in this situation. So it's probably fine. But can you imagine that within 1.5 months, Google already built up an idea about my personal brand? My name is quite unique. So, I mean, you Google me, you find what I'm all about. That's it. Nobody else like that. So when you have it, and I have that word association, is that good or bad? Will it trigger people eventually?
in your case, because to me, it comes back to one of your step number twos on branding recently, which is about stand for your values.
Exactly.
And your brands, your values, they're based on a truth, on an integrity pillar that many people aren't really comfortable about. It reminds me again of Clarine's comment about, can I be my authentic self without
Yes.
fear in person and online? And a good example is we were with some friends recently celebrating a birthday. And it was an amazing opportunity to celebrate a good friend's birthday live. And last year we didn't have the opportunity. And last year she had a milestone birthday. She celebrated it alone on vacation. When someone was supposed to have gone with her and been there to toast. And wish you well and treat your dinner and sing happy birthday. And we were talking from a perspective that really reminded me of the personal part. And I appreciate it. A client was there, a mentor was there, a coach was there. I had family there. It's almost every different reaction. And somebody who didn't really know me well was there. So this person is speaking and they're speaking about their fears and they're speaking about, we'd say, almost every forbidden topic that you don't normally have in a conversation. You wouldn't have it with a business associate. Wasn't a conversation I necessarily would have had with a client one-on-one, but I knew that client really well. I knew that mentor really well. They also have integrity and value built into their pillars. I think what happens is when we don't have that same value system, that's where the issue is. I mean, Cheryl mentions it just about how we're reacting differently to our experiences. But Eve, you are the type, honestly, I could see you as a newscaster. I would tune in and watch you every single day. It's just something, if there's bad news, give it to Eve. She'll tell me. I will be able to process it and digest it. I think the hard part is, and I'm glad that Aries had popped in from the mental fitness and the positive intelligence perspective, is, and I appreciate that because it's now given me a system to process how I express emotions with clients. But I'll tell you, for a little bit at this birthday celebration, got a little warm in there, got a little uncomfortable. I actually, I had a glass of champagne because we had toasted. And I love champagne. We know this. I actually stopped drinking. I think it's kind of interesting, and part of it is it wasn't a fear, but it was an acknowledgement. We were kind of on the thin ice topic, so I think reminding underneath sometimes that that part can be there when we're talking about our experiences as women. You're talking about your experience as a woman, but you're also talking about your experience as a person for who war is now a daily component of your daily life. But I have to thank you because with elegance, with grace, with simplicity, you're sharing what's happening to us and you're reminding us not only do we care about you an extraordinary amount. So thank you from the courage perspective. The fact that you help people with personal brands uncover their fears and their visibility. I mean, you live it. So
You
thank you
know,
very much for that.
I can tell you that I'm lucky to attract people who actually have the extraordinary experiences at the moment, and I think I'm extremely grateful for that because I finally start getting from people this message about authenticity, that they're like, you are so authentic, you always saying your truth, and I'm like, that's how I want to be portrayed in their mind. So I'm grateful that people start seeing this. Still, I don't believe that I'm fully open because, as you say, this kind of processing, like how we process our experiences, how we process our emotions, how we live our stories, they're different for everybody, exactly like the comment was. So the thing is, we don't really need to share everything and be naked in front of everybody. It's not necessary if you don't want it. I mean, if somebody
So
wants to
then
do
you're
it,
you're saying the reminder, as we had said before in our first discussion, where we started talking about business transparency.
yes,
It's a choice of what we show.
yes.
It's a choice of how we show up. I had a conversation with a strategic alliance a couple of months ago. She says, "You're putting out some really positive content," and I started smiling because the day she said this, I was not feeling positive. It wasn't a day I posted. It
Hmm.
wasn't a day I was planning on going live. She says, "Everything you're putting out is really positive." And I have to thank her because we it led somebody else in a post to talk about toxic positivity.
Hmm.
And I really was able to balance how much of it we present, whether we let the texture in or out. My joke, and I said it, good friends, and you've heard me say it many times, if it's a great day, I'm hanging out. That's not necessarily a day that I'm releasing the sunshine video because I'm not prepared to sustain the
This is
engagement with
exactly
it.
the question. What are we releasing? This is like this what we're discussing all this time. This was the biggest question to me after I moved out the evacuation and actually was able to sit in front of my computer in a peaceful place, because I was talking a lot about the work experience straightforward from the fields. I mean, the journey was hectic, but I didn't feel it by that time. Now, processing, by the way, this journey, I can see that what I did, I probably wouldn't do it now because it was scary. But at the moment when I feel comfortable in things like this, I would be probably thinking twice if I would do all of that. So thing is, exactly, this is when we process the situation, we're like, oh, we can judge our own courage. We can judge what we did. We can understand what happened. We can understand what kind of changes happened to your personality. But I didn't speak about my business. All this time I couldn't, because we have the war situation. I put myself in a duty to speak to the Western world, to explain them that it's not about their fears and all this kind of things, because this fear concept, it's like, okay, you fear somebody who is attacking you. How does it help you? Until he can attack you, he will attack you. That's it. I mean, so
Ah, where
I'm
you're
still
making
delivering the message about fear, you see. So people still tell me that, oh my God, we are so afraid. Your fear doesn't help you. That's the thing. So you need to deal with this thing. Like, you have something, the elephant in the room again, with that fear, and it's a huge, huge trigger. And
one
the
of the things
triggers,
when you're saying that, you're saying so much there. The part that you're saying about fear, and it took me a while, and really being on the board of Fearless, I greatly appreciate having Kellyanne as an executive director and Sarita as an associate director, having their voices, because they've helped me understand that in terms of fears, that whenever we're feeling fears, there's a trauma there. It's just like
yes,
you were saying before about whether we share from that scar, we share from that open wound. But I
yeah.
think
And
the
trauma is an open wound. Exactly.
but
Trauma is not a scar.
some of us have lifelong trauma, and we will have it.
Exactly.
And whether, in the days, and back in the days when I was a young kid, you were able to have dinner with your parents and listen to the news. I cringe now thinking of parents sitting with their children listening to the news, because I appreciate the newscasters who say, if your child is with you, you might want to think about this. You need to think about who's in the room, and how we're taking care of them. But I think also that part of what you're saying about branding, you're reminding me under the what are we releasing, about the sensitivity part. And I think
Exactly.
that's part of the strategies part we should really
Yes.
highlight today.
Yes. So it's
Whether we're
also
aware of what's happening with someone else, as you're saying,
yes.
people are reaching out to you online, all different time zones, all
Yeah.
different times of the day and night. I reached out to you early, I realized
Some of us losing internet, I guess.
and we're about to have a storm here.
Oh.
So in case I lost you for a second, yep, the winds are picking up. We're supposed to have 60-mile-an-hour winds with like tornado watches. So I apologize if there's been a pause there.
So what I wanted to tell, let's go to that. The fear is your biggest teacher. That's how we need to understand it. Instead of getting into fear and be afraid of it forever and sit there and be afraid, right? We stuck, we freeze. Fear is always a reaction of the attack or freeze or run. So instead of running, instead of attacking, we really need to understand it's our biggest teacher and understand what can we learn from this situation. Any bad situation is our teacher, the best teacher, and we can't fail, because as a student we will always learn something from every single trauma. And in the moment we adopt this approach, we actually become almost invincible, because every single thing which happened in our life is kind of adding to it. It's not taking, because you learn every single time from the worst situation ever. So this is thing number one. Thing number two, I also received the message today about the leadership, which was very important. And again, it's not the first time when people say that, oh my God, we don't have proper leaders, the leadership problem and things like this. We are all, and now hear me out, we are all waiting for the right leaders. This is why we don't have leaders. Because when we waiting, then someone will lead us and we are not building up leadership within. That's actually a problem,
But
because
some
we
of
are
us,
all
we've talked about
waiting.
this before. Some of us need to be prompted to be leaders, to
We
act
need to
as
be
leaders.
leaders
To
inside.
but I think the thing is, as you're saying about inside, the reminder is to accept leadership.
Yes.
And
Within you, learn to be a leader. As a personal brand, you're always a leader. That's important part. You can't build a personal brand without being a leader. That I can tell you 100%. Because in a moment you build a brand, you basically tell to the society, I am leading you somewhere. Here I am, open, transparent. This is my story. This is where I'm going. If you want to go with me, you're welcomed. This is pretty much the brand promise. And this is one of the ways how we build it. That's why in our strategies, we write our books so they know the story and they can follow. We create our videos. We speak on all the channels so people understand what our values are, what we stand for, what is our story, so that they can follow. They see some value in this following. So as personal brand, we pretty much building reputation and leadership. This is what we do.
I love what you're saying there. And while we're there, the one part of Exquisite Eve that I forgot to mention was your visual brilliance. So as you're thinking of, yes, as you're thinking of visuals for your personal brand, are there themes to think of when we're building those strategies? When, people talk about it all the time, and I appreciate it. Ari Weinstein had a great post earlier, and I'll have to tag it. Ari shared a post about contrast in terms of personal branding under the hashtag personal branding. And I know there are tons of posts and in those segments, but I thought it was brilliant because he talked about the part of contrast, and he talked about the part of inclusion. And underneath it, I really felt it because it was a reminder: lead with our contrast, lead with kind of how we're different. But how would you do that, or suggest that people do that visually?
See, this is an interesting thing as well, because what I learned in the time of war, and I told a little bit about this in our previous interview, when at the beginning of the pandemic, I told the necessity, the call for authenticity from everybody. But by that time, we still were following visually the previous trend. So post yourself, your face is your logo, you will be recognizable by your face. And that was the main idea. And it did work very, very well. So it can be your own photo shoots and things like this, but not necessarily professional. It can be very casual things. Casual experience from life, again, involving in the story on a daily basis. This all worked. But when the war started, and that was a very interesting experience to me, because you when you go through such experience, and I think it will resonate with many people who went through specific very terrifying and experience, which really big. I mean, not everybody going through the war in their life, so it's a big experience. So when you're going through this experience, you're not necessarily ready to post your own selfie because you feel not safe. And this psychological not being safe reflect on the fact that you don't want to post your own selfie because you don't want to show up. So interestingly enough, I was posting either documentary kind of photos from the bomb shelter or like me in the train, but mostly those were images of the things around me, not necessarily me in these things. Or many of my posts, which were philosophical style, didn't have images at all. And in fact, those posts had more attention than post with images. Why so? That's my thoughts. In this case, I've been teaching that visuals are very important, and they are because people are visual, verbal, audio. People proceeding information differently and prefer different type of information. But when we talk about social media, many people are tired or don't want to be associated with a specific visual. So when we build personal brand, we need to understand that once somebody like it, especially on LinkedIn, this will show up on their timeline. Do they want to be associated with the image which you add? So the main idea in the social media was always like make disruptive image, make the image which make people stop scrolling. I will not click on the image, I will not share, I will not like the image like that in on LinkedIn. Because if it will appear on everybody else's timeline with my name on it, I not necessarily want it. So it depends, and you need to build this association. It's not about pleasing people. It's about reputation, and it's about certain moderation. Again, it's not diminishing or removing the authenticity. It's really a process when you take in consideration your clients, your audience, because you understand that they are part of your tribe and you treat them with respect as leaders supposed to do. We are not treating them as pockets, we're treating them as our allies, as our tribe, as our network. And therefore, we want them to feel something about our images, about our text. Do they feel proud about that? My post, people start sharing my posts a lot. And I'm like, wow. I mean, it's a new thing to me, to be honest. People didn't share my posts that much. And what they share the thought, first of all. They don't share the image. Because I think day before yesterday, I shared the post. I literally copied the image somewhere from internet. That was Eurovision photo of our winner group, because Ukraine won the Eurovision. And by that time, the group actually ask people to do some petition to help to save heroes from Azovstal with extraction, because it's an important law. It's possible. However, not everybody in a Western-speaking world actually knew what did he mean when he was like, save Azovstal, save, be with Ukraine, blah, blah. People like, yeah, we heard it, good, awesome, be with you, we are praying for you. But he was very specific about what he wanted. It's a political kind of petition. So I did write a post, what exactly he mean in English, explaining what this big event actually was about for
I
this
thank
guy.
you for your post because I then went and looked it up more. And
Mhm,
then when it popped up on our news later that evening, it
mhm.
had a different meaning. So thanks for reminding us of that as part of our conversations and part of the strategies. What are we releasing? And my visual conversation, Eve, who shares breathtaking visuals, found more response from a post without an image. So I think it's the reminder, as you're saying, underneath all of this, that if as a strategy, staying flexible is a
Yes.
big part of this, because as you're reminding us, the personal branding is about our life journey, not just our professional journey or our business journey, but
I
about
have one
life.
more suggestion on that, which actually come up because I share a lot of images which are very branded. And here's the thing: if you are professional designer or you have access to a professional designer, that's a little bit different story altogether. Because I learn how to, I mean, I create the images which can be professional and can work with my images, which I just take on my camera. So it's always the mix between the selfies, some random images, and really branded presence, which is available on my site. But that's a little bit more professional look. So if you have access to professional designer who can work for you, create a brand style for you and things like that, that's a very good suggestion. For example, in my program, we work on all of this, but not everybody goes through this personal brand experience. It's not absolutely necessary unless you want to build it like in a very different professional way, faster, more organized, more giving the understand your values, find yourself. Because for many people, like, they want to find themselves, they want to create content which resonate, they want to create content which people share, but they just don't know where to start, or they afraid to face themselves. That the bigger thing.
So I'm the kid who no one wants on your Pictionary team. So graphics for me were totally a challenge until you and Michael Roach helped me start thinking of brand guidelines. And I met amazing Jackie Barker, who's like, Mel, what is all this? What is all this stuff? And she helped me line up a brand guideline with the name of the brand, with a story for the brand. It really helped me too, because I think in the process of this, if I hadn't started on Possible Live, it reminded me to share the story of I'm Possible. It wasn't a story that I thought others felt was important, to say in the beginning that this happened because of, a magnet that started out on my refrigerator, which led to, Jonathan's great graphics, which led to a kind of a journey. And really, when I really thought about it, in a really wild way, it was a 20 some odd year journey. You want the short story. You don't want the whole story. And that reminder too, as you would say, to do it with clarity and really be succinct. But Eve, I cannot thank you enough for joining us again. And I love it because the first time I allowed a half hour, I knew that wasn't enough. Today I allowed 45 minutes. That still is not enough. So you're going to have to come back at some point as you're settling from a different vantage point to share more gems with us about personal branding. And I want to thank you for that, because I would never have been sure where to start without you. You helped me simplify it on such a level, and I would love to encourage our viewers who are on LinkedIn, check Eve out, follow her, click on her beautiful site. But Eve, I wouldn't be Eve and we wouldn't be Mel without, I know you have your tea, but I just want to toast smiles across the miles, and to thank you so much for joining us, and thank our viewers for tuning in live, for replays, for parts of it. But please keep sharing your questions, your observations, and keep reaching out. Eve and I both welcome the conversations, but I'd love to encourage you, stay safe, stay well, stay inspired, stay in touch. Check out Exquisite Eve more when you can, and have a magnificent day.
Thank you, thank you, thank
Thank
you.
you.